I found out my dad had paid $60,000 for my brother's college the same week. He slid a handwritten note under my door that said, "You owe $900 in back rent." If you've ever felt your stomach drop so hard it's like your body is trying to warn you before your brain can catch up, you know exactly what that moment felt like. My name is Brianna. I was 24, working 2 jobs, and living in the tiny upstairs room of my parents' house that they still called my childhood bedroom like it was a gift, not a trap. I had moved back home after a breakup and a layoff in the same month, and I told myself it was temporary. Just a reset. Just a few months to rebuild. I didn't realize my family saw my reset as a new revenue stream. The note was written in my dad's blocky, angry handwriting. No hello. No conversation. No warning. Just a number and the word, "oh," like I was a stranger who had missed a payment. I stared at it for a full minute, waiting for the punchline. Then I heard my brother Logan laughing downstairs. Loud, carefree laughter. Kind you get when you've never had to calculate whether you can afford groceries and gas in the same week. I walked down the stairs, still holding the note, and my dad was at the kitchen table with his laptop open, looking serious like he was doing something important. My mom was rinsing dishes, humming. Logan was sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone like he owned time. "Dad, what is this?" I asked, and my voice came out too controlled, which is always how my family knew I was close to breaking. My dad didn't look up. "It's simple, Brianna. You've been living here. You're an adult. Adults pay rent." I held up the note. "Back rent? Since when?" He finally looked at me, and there was no softness in his eyes. "Since you moved back in. It's been 3 months. 300 a month. That's 900. My mom turned around like this was normal. "It's just to teach responsibility, honey," she said, like I'd been partying instead of working double shifts and coming home exhausted. I felt my face heat up. "Teach responsibility." I repeated. "I pay my car insurance. I pay my phone. I buy my own food. I help with groceries. I even watch Aunt Claire's kids when you volunteer me." My dad's jaw tightened. "Don't argue, Brianna. This is our house." And there it was. The phrase they used any time they wanted power without accountability. Our house. Like that erased the fact that they were my parents. Like that erased the fact that I came home because I thought family meant safety. I took a slow breath. "Okay. When did we agree on this?" I asked. My dad's eyes flashed. "We don't need your agreement. We're telling you." Mom stepped in with her sweet voice. "Your father and I have been very generous letting you stay. We have expenses." I stared at her because the word generous in that sentence sounded like a joke. "Generous," I said softly. "Logan has lived here for 2 years after graduating, and you've never charged him $1. Logan didn't even look up. He smirked like this wasn't his problem. My dad leaned forward. "Logan is different. Different." That word landed like a slap. "How?" I asked. Dad's voice lowered, dangerous. "Logan is building his future. He needed support." I laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "I am also building my future. I'm working. I'm trying to get back on my feet." Dad's mouth twisted. "Then you should appreciate the lesson." My hands started to shake, and I pressed the note flat on the table like I could press the absurdity out of it. "What lesson?" "That you can change the rules after the fact and hand me a bill." Dad's eyes narrowed. "Watch your tone." The air in the kitchen went heavy, the same way it always did when I refused to shrink fast enough. I looked at Logan again, and that's when I noticed the envelope on the counter with a university logo. New mail. Bright, official, expensive. "What's that?" I asked, and my mom answered too quickly. "Oh, that's Logan's tuition statement." Tuition statement. My throat went tight. He's still in school. Logan finally looked up, proud. Master's program. Starting next semester. My dad's chest lifted like he was announcing a legacy. We're taking care of it, he said. I blinked. Taking care of it how? Dad didn't flinch. We paid. Like we always said we would. The room tilted. How much? I asked, and my voice sounded far away even to me. Logan leaned back, smug. Dad already covered undergrad. Now he's helping with the masters. My dad said it like it was nothing. About 60,000 over the years. 60,000. I stood there with a $900 back rent note in my hand and 60,000 in the air like a chandelier above Logan's head. So let me understand, I said slowly. You can pay 60,000 for Logan's college, but you need to charge me $900 because I moved back home after my life exploded. My dad's eyes went cold. Don't compare, he snapped. Logan earned it. I felt my heart beat once hard. Earned it, I repeated. With what? Logan scoffed. With not being dramatic all the time. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. I stared at him, and something inside me shifted because I suddenly saw the whole family system like a diagram. Logan was the investment. I was the expense. Logan got funded. I got billed. My mom's voice went soft, warning. Brianna, don't start a fight. She always said that when I started naming reality. I looked at my dad. I'll pay the 900, I said, and my dad's shoulders relaxed like he'd won. Then I added, but I want everything in writing from now on. I want receipts. I want a lease. If I'm a tenant, you're a landlord. And landlords follow laws. The silence that followed was so thick you could hear the refrigerator hum. My dad's face darkened. Don't be smart, he said. I'm not being smart, I replied. I'm being clear. You can't call it family when you want loyalty and call it business when you want money. Pick one. Logan laughed under his breath. My mom looked like she'd swallowed a stone. My dad stood up slowly, chair scraping. If you don't like it, you can leave. That threat used to terrify me. That day, it landed differently. 'Cause I realized something. They were counting on me, needing them more than they needed control. I folded the note carefully, like I was folding up proof. Okay, I said. Then I'll leave. Not today. But soon. And when I do, don't act surprised when my phone goes quiet too. My dad opened his mouth, ready to punish me with more words, but my mom jumped in fast. Brianna, please. You're being emotional. Emotional. Another word they used to make facts sound like feelings. I turned and walked back upstairs, and my legs were shaking. Not from fear. From the moment you realize the people you loved are perfectly comfortable charging you for belonging. In my room, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the walls I'd grown up in. Posters were gone. Childhood shelves were dusty. It didn't feel like my room. Felt like a storage unit they were renting back to me. I opened my banking app and looked at my balance. I could pay $900. It would hurt, but I could. And I knew if I paid it, my dad would feel justified. Like he'd proven a point. So I decided the payment would come with something he could not twist. Paper trail. A boundary. A plan. Because if my family wanted to treat love like a ledger, I was done paying with my dignity. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying the numbers like they were a bad song stuck in my head. 60,000 for Logan. 900 demanded from me like a debt collector's note. 300 a month retroactive, like my existence had been accruing interest in my father's mind. 2 in the morning I got up, opened my laptop, and started a spreadsheet. Not because I'm naturally organized, but because rage makes you precise when you finally stop crying and start calculating. I listed everything I'd paid since moving back in. Groceries, gas when Mom forgot her wallet, the babysitting I did for Aunt Claire's kids, the hours I spent fixing the Wi-Fi, repainting the hallway, cleaning up after Dad's weekend projects. Then I added the things I'd paid for before I ever moved back. My own community college classes because Logan's tuition fund had been tight the year I graduated. My first car, half financed by me and half loaned by my parents with strings attached. The more I typed, the clearer it got. This wasn't about responsibility. This was about control. Dad could turn my setback into a bill. He could keep me small. He could keep me grateful. He could keep me quiet. The next morning I woke up to my mom tapping on my door like nothing happened. "Hey, honey. Breakfast is ready." That gentle voice she used when she wanted the house to feel normal again. Like conflict was a stain she could wipe away with pancakes. I went downstairs, and Logan was already at the table eating like a king. "Morning, renter," he said, grinning. I stared at him, and my mom laughed nervously like it was a joke. "Logan, stop." She scolded, but not really. My dad came in wearing his work boots, coffee in hand. He looked at me once, then sat down and opened his laptop again like he was the CEO of our family. "So," he said, "you'll transfer the $900 by Friday." My jaw tightened. "I'll pay it," I said, "but I want a receipt. I want it labeled as rent. I want the dates. And I want to know what the rules are going forward." My dad's eyes flashed. "Don't push me," he said. Mom set down a plate in front of me too hard. "Brianna, please. Don't make this harder. Just pay it. It's not that much." Not that much. I almost laughed. "It's not that much for you because you're spending $60,000 on Logan," I said. Logan snorted. "Jealousy isn't cute, Brie." My dad slammed his mug down. "Enough," he snapped. "Logan is an investment. You are a grown woman living under my roof. End of story." Investment. Like I was a bad stock. I stared at my plate, appetite gone. "Okay," I said softly. "Then I'm going to treat this like business." Dad leaned forward. "Here we go," he muttered. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said the truth. Businesses don't change terms without notice. Businesses don't threaten tenants emotionally. And businesses don't pretend they're family when it's convenient. My mom's eyes widened and she gave me that look like, "Stop. You're going to make him angry." But I was tired of living my life according to his anger. I stood up, pushed my chair in, and went to work. Both jobs. Because that's what I always did. I kept my life moving while my family tried to freeze me in place. Over the next few days I played their game, but I played it smarter. I asked Dad in writing for the terms of rent. I texted him. Confirm monthly rent amount going forward. Confirm what utilities are included. Confirm start date. He didn't answer. He told Mom I was disrespectful. Mom cornered me in the hallway and whispered, "Why are you doing this? You're making your father feel like the bad guy." I stared at her. If the truth makes him feel like the bad guy, that's not my job to fix. Her face tightened. He's stressed. Logan's school is expensive. I blinked. Then why are you spending that money? She didn't answer. She just shook her head like I was the unreasonable one. That Friday I transferred the $900. But I did it with a memo line. Rent payment. March to May. And I took screenshots of everything. The transfer. The date. The memo. The moment the money left my account. Because if Dad wanted to rewrite history later, I wanted proof. That evening, I came home to my dad sitting in the living room like he was waiting to deliver a verdict. I saw your little memo, he said, voice low. Don't get cute. I set my bag down slowly. It's not cute. It's accurate. My dad's eyes narrowed. You're trying to make me look like a landlord. You are acting like one, I said. My mom appeared behind him, arms crossed. Logan hovered near the stairs, interested like it was entertainment. Dad stood up. Do you know what the problem with you is? He said. You always need to be a victim. My stomach clenched. I'm not a victim, I said. I'm a customer. And I'm canceling my subscription. Logan laughed. My dad didn't. He stepped closer. You think you can leave? Where are you going to go? That question, so casual, was the real truth. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as trapped. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed steady. I'm looking, I said. And I'm not telling you where until I'm gone. Mom's face went pale. Brianna, don't be dramatic. Dad pointed upstairs. Then pack your things. But don't come crawling back when it gets hard. I nodded once. I won't, I said. And that was the moment my father realized his threat wasn't working. His control depended on my fear. And my fear was fading. Over the next week, I quietly collected documents. Birth certificate. Social security card. Old bank paperwork. I opened a new checking account at a different bank. I changed my direct deposit. I started scanning rental listings during lunch breaks. I didn't tell anyone, not even my friends, because I didn't trust the information not to reach my mother's mouth somehow. My mom started acting extra sweet, which was always her warning sign. She made my favorite dinner. She asked how my day was. She said things like, "We just want what's best for you." I knew what that meant. She could feel me slipping away, and she was trying to glue me back down with comfort. Then the trap sprung. One night she said casually, "Oh, by the way, your father thinks since you're paying rent, you should also start contributing to utilities. Just an extra $100 a month." I stared at her. You said nothing about that. She shrugged like it was obvious. Well, costs have gone up. And you're here. There it was again. New rules. New bills. Always moving the goalpost so I could never catch up. I felt something settle in me, calm and cold. Okay, I said. Then I'm leaving sooner. My mom blinked. What? I looked her in the eye. I'm done being the family ATM, I said. You chose to fund Logan. That's your choice. But you don't get to finance him by billing me for existing. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Because she couldn't argue with math. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. They didn't want fairness. They wanted obedience. And I was finally ready to stop giving it to them. The next 2 weeks felt like living inside a quiet heist. I smiled when I had to. I said good morning like I wasn't counting days. I kept my keys in my pocket at all times because my dad had this habit of organizing when he was angry, which really meant snooping. Every time I left for work, I took one more thing that mattered. My passport. My spare car key. The folder with my tax returns. A small jewelry box with the only necklace Grandma ever gave me. I didn't pack suitcases yet. Suitcases were loud. Suitcases would trigger questions. I packed like a woman who had learned that escape has to be quiet because in some families, leaving is treated like betrayal instead of self-respect. Logan noticed first because Logan noticed anything that disrupted his comfort. One afternoon, he leaned against my doorway, chewing gum like he was bored. "So you're really doing this?" he said. I kept folding my laundry because if I looked at him too long, I might say something that would blow up my timeline. "Doing what?" I asked. He smirked. "The whole I'm leaving thing." I didn't answer. He took my silence as permission. "You know Dad's right, though," he said. "You always make everything about you." That sentence hit a nerve so hard it felt physical. I turned slowly. "Logan, Dad paid $60,000 for your education. I'm being billed $900 retroactively for living in the room I grew up in. How is that making it about me?" Logan rolled his eyes. "Because you keep bringing up the money like it proves something." I stared at him. "It does prove something. Proves who gets supported and who gets charged." He shrugged like fairness was a childish concept. "Maybe they just expect more from you," he said. "You're the strong one. The strong one." The phrase always sounded like a compliment until you realize it's a job title. A role. A justification for neglect. I felt my jaw tighten. "Strong doesn't mean free," I said. Logan laughed softly. "Whatever. Don't come back crying when you realize rent out there is way more than $300 a month." He said it like a threat, like my dad was giving me a bargain. I looked at him and finally let my voice go cold. "I'd rather pay a stranger than pay you people with my dignity." Logan's smirk faded. He didn't have a comeback for that because dignity isn't a number you can argue with. That night my dad accidentally brought up my breakup at dinner. He always did that when he wanted to remind me I was lucky to have a roof. "If you hadn't picked that loser, you wouldn't be back here," he said, slicing his steak like he was doing surgery. My mom laughed lightly, too lightly. "Your father just worries," she said. I stared at my plate and felt my stomach twist because I realized they weren't just billing me. They were punishing me. Charging back rent was never about teaching responsibility. It was about making sure I felt embarrassed for needing them. Logan chimed in because he always enjoyed the dog pile. "Yeah, Bree. Maybe don't make such emotional decisions next time." I looked up. "Like taking out $60,000 of emotional support for your college," I said. My dad's fork slammed down. "That's enough," he snapped. My mom's eyes widened. "Brianna, please," she whispered, like she was scared of what would happen if I didn't obey. Dad leaned forward, voice low. "If you keep disrespecting this family, you'll pay more than rent." Threat. Always the threat. I nodded once, calm. "Noted," I said. Then I stood, took my plate, and washed it because I refused to fight in a room where the rules were designed for me to lose. 2 days later, I got my first real lead. A tiny studio above a bakery, 20 minutes from my second job. Smelled like bread and old paint, and the windows were small, but when I stood in the empty room, my chest did that weird thing it does when hope feels dangerous. The landlord was a tired woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a clipboard. "Income verification," she said. "First month. Security deposit." I handed her my pay stubs like they were a passport. She looked them over and nodded. "You work a lot," she said. I laughed once short. "I have practice." Total to move in was steep but possible. Not comfortable. Possible. And that's the thing about people like my dad. They assume you won't leave because leaving is expensive. They don't count on how expensive staying becomes when your piece is the payment. I got approved 3 days later. I didn't celebrate. I didn't tell anyone. I just stared at the email in my break room and felt my eyes burn because the relief was so sharp it almost felt like grief. That night my mom cornered me while my dad was in the garage. Her voice went soft, rehearsed. "Honey, your father is stressed," she said. I kept my face neutral. "Okay." She stepped closer. "If you apologize for the way you've been talking, I think he'll drop the utilities thing." There it was. The deal. My dignity for a discount. I looked at her, and for a second I saw the way she had spent years smoothing the sharp edges of my dad's behavior so the family could keep pretending it was normal. Mom, I said quietly, why are you negotiating my living conditions like you're my manager? Her face twitched. I'm trying to help. Help would be. Your father shouldn't charge you back rent, I said. Help would be. We're glad you're safe here. My mom's eyes flashed. We did let you come back, she said, and the resentment slipped out. I stared at her because that sentence said everything. They didn't see it as love. They saw it as leverage. I nodded slowly. Thank you for confirming, I said. She blinked. Confirming what? I didn't answer. I just went upstairs, locked my door, and texted the landlord. I can sign tomorrow. The next day I signed the lease on my lunch break. My name on paper felt unreal. Like I was borrowing someone else's life for a second. When I got back to work, my phone buzzed. Dad, we need to talk tonight. No question mark. No courtesy. Just an order. I stared at the message and felt something click inside me like a latch. The moment I had my own lease, his threats lost oxygen. I didn't respond. When I got home, the house felt tense, like it knew. Mom hovered in the kitchen. Logan sat on the couch pretending not to listen. Dad was at the table with the same posture he had when he gave me the rent note, like he was about to assign me another bill. Sit down, he said. I sat calm. I've been thinking, he began, since you want to act like a tenant, we should formalize things. You'll owe an additional $200 for groceries. And we expect you to help more around here. He said it like he was being fair. Like I should be grateful for the chance to pay more. My mother nodded quickly. Logan smirked. I looked at my dad and felt a strange, steady clarity. No, I said. Dad's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. No, I repeated. I'm moving out. The room went silent. My mom inhaled sharply like I'd announced a death. Dad stared at me like he didn't recognize the concept of me choosing something. You can't be serious, he said. Logan laughed once, surprised. Where? My dad demanded. I kept my voice flat. I'm not discussing details. I'll be gone by the end of the week. Dad's face darkened. After everything we've done, you're just leaving. My chest tightened, but I didn't bend. You charged me back rent while paying $60,000 for Logan. You made it clear what I am to you. I'm just responding to the terms. My mom's voice shook. Brianna, please, don't do this. Your father didn't mean it like that. I looked at her. He wrote it down. He slid it under my door. That's exactly how he meant it. Dad stood up fast, chair scraping. If you walk out, don't come back, he snapped. Old threat. Same script. I nodded once. I won't, I said. Then I stood, picked up my water glass, and walked upstairs while my legs shook, because leaving was still scary, but staying had become impossible. In my room, I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. Then I opened my phone and typed a message to my best friend. Move day is Friday. Can you help? She replied in seconds. Yes. And I'm proud of you. I stared at her words until my eyes blurred, because in one sentence she gave me what my family never did. Support without a bill attached. The next morning my dad acted like nothing happened, which was always his favorite tactic. If he ignored the conflict, he could pretend he was still in control. I came downstairs at 6 to make coffee before my first shift, and he was already sitting at the table with his laptop, scrolling like a man who didn't threaten to disown his daughter 12 hours earlier. Mom was making eggs, too cheerful, too forced. Logan was asleep, of course. Dad didn't look up. You'll need to pay next month's rent too, he said casually, like we were discussing the weather. I stood still with the coffee jar in my hand. No, I said. He finally lifted his eyes, irritated. What do you mean, no? I'm moving out, I said. End of the week. I told you. Dad's mouth tightened. Don't be dramatic. You don't have the money. He said it like a fact because he wanted it to be true. Mom turned fast. Brianna, honey, maybe we can talk about it, she said, voice soft. Dad waved her off without looking. She's trying to get attention. That sentence lit something in me. Tension. Like my pain was a performance. Like my boundaries were a tantrum. I poured coffee slowly because I refused to rush for his comfort. I signed a lease yesterday, I said. Dad froze for half a second. The smallest crack. Then he covered it with anger. You did what? I signed a lease, I repeated. I'm leaving. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Brianna, why would you do that without telling us? Question almost made me laugh. Without telling you. As if they were entitled to a vote. Because you would sabotage it, I said quietly. Mom's eyes widened, offended. I would never. I looked at her. You're standing in a kitchen where your husband charged me back rent and you called it responsibility. You already did. Dad stood up slowly. Where is this place? He demanded. Not your business, I said. His face went red. Everything about you is my business while you live in my house. I nodded once. Exactly. That's why I'm leaving. Dad stepped closer, voice low. You're not taking my furniture. You're not taking anything we bought. I stared at him. I'm taking my clothes, my documents, and the things I paid for. That's it. You'll regret this, he said. Mom jumped in fast, voice pleading. Brianna, your father is under pressure. Logan's program is expensive. He didn't mean to make you feel less important. Less important. The understatement almost made my throat close. Mom, I said. He literally made me a bill while he wrote Logan a check. That's not a feeling. That's a decision. Dad's jaw clenched. Logan is going to do something with his life. He snapped. I looked at him. So am I said. I just don't get funded for it. He scoffed. You chose your path. There it was. Another rewrite. Like I chose to be undercharged, undersupported, and over-criticized. No, I said. You chose my role. Dad opened his mouth, but Mom cut in too sweet. How about we compromise? You can stay and we'll lower the rent to $200 a month. A discount. A leash with softer padding. I shook my head. I'm not negotiating my worth. I grabbed my mug and walked out to my car, heart racing. At work that day I moved on autopilot. Smile. Register. Coffee orders. Then my second job. Then home. But inside my head I was running through checklists. Boxes. Storage. Move truck. Internet setup. Change address. I didn't realize how much mental energy my family took until I started redirecting that energy into building an exit. When I got home that evening, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Mom was on the couch, hands clasped. Dad was in the garage, slamming things. Logan was finally awake, scrolling. He looked up when I walked in, amused. So you're really leaving, he said. I kept my voice flat. Yes, he smirked. Dad says you'll be back in a month. I stared at him. Do you want me to fail? I asked. Logan shrugged. I don't care. I just think it's funny you're acting like a martyr. Martyr. The word made my skin crawl. I'm not a martyr, I said. I'm a person who refuses to be billed for love. Logan laughed and went back to his phone because people like him don't understand until the system turns on them. That night I started packing for real. Quietly. I waited until Dad's TV was loud. I used soft bags instead of boxes. I slid my things into my trunk in small batches. Every time I opened my closet, I felt like I was taking pieces of myself back. Mom knocked on my door around 10. "Can we talk?" she whispered. I opened it halfway. She stood there in her robe, eyes shiny like she wanted to be the wounded one. "You're breaking my heart," she said. I felt the old instinct to comfort her. I forced it down. "Mom, my heart broke when Dad decided my presence here had a price tag." She winced like I'd slapped her. "He was trying to teach you." "Teach me what?" I asked softly. "That Logan gets love and I get invoices." Tears slid down her cheeks. "That's not true," she said. I held her gaze. "Then say it. Say you'll refund the 900. Say you'll stop charging me. Say you'll treat me like your daughter." Mom's mouth opened, then closed, because she couldn't promise what would upset my dad. And that was the real problem. She didn't choose fairness. She chose peace with him. "I can't do that," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "Then I can't stay," I said. She reached for my hand and I stepped back. Not cruel. Just done. "Please don't leave us like this," she begged. "Leave you like what?" I asked. "With consequences." She flinched. I closed the door gently. Then I leaned against it and let myself shake for a minute because boundaries feel like grief when you've been trained to call them betrayal. 2 days before move out, Dad upped the pressure. He left another note on my bed. "If you leave, you're forfeiting any help in the future." The funny part was I read it and felt nothing. 'Cause I already knew. The help was never real. It was conditional. It was expensive. Came with interest. The night before Friday, my best friend Tessa showed up with boxes anyway. She didn't ask if I deserved it. She didn't demand receipts. She just walked in, saw my face, and said, "We're getting you out." And for the first time in weeks, I felt safe. Not because the house was mine. 'Cause the loyalty was. Friday morning, I woke up before my alarm, heart already racing. I could hear Dad moving downstairs, heavy footsteps, the cabinet doors closing too hard. That sound used to mean, prepare for a lecture. Prepare to shrink. But this time it meant something else. It meant I was leaving while he still thought he was in charge. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the half-empty room. The walls looked naked. The air felt different. Like the house could sense I was slipping out of the role they'd assigned me. I checked my phone. "Tessa. On my way. 2 cars. We'll be quick." I exhaled. Quick mattered. Quick meant less time for sabotage. I didn't tell my dad what time I was leaving because I already knew what he would do. He would create a family emergency. He would block the driveway. He would stand in the doorway with that look like I owed him one last chance to correct me. So I moved like a woman getting out of a burning building. I carried my last bags downstairs while the coffee was still brewing. Mom was in the kitchen, eyes puffy like she'd been crying. She looked at the bags and her face collapsed. "Brianna," she whispered. I kept my voice gentle but firm. "I'm leaving today, Mom." She swallowed hard. "Your father, he's upset." I almost laughed. Course he was. The landlord had lost a paying tenant. Logan walked in, wearing sweatpants, rubbing his eyes like this was just another morning. He saw the bags and smirked. "Wow, she's actually doing it." I didn't respond. I refused to feed him. Dad came in a minute later, dressed for work, keys in hand. He stopped when he saw the bags, and his whole face tightened like he was swallowing rage. "So this is how it is," he said. Not a question. A verdict. I set the bag down slowly. "Yes," I said. Dad's nostrils flared. You're making a huge mistake. I'm making a boundary, I replied. Mom's voice cracked. Can we please not do this right now? Right now. She always wanted a different time. A better time. A time when accountability wouldn't ruin the mood. Dad stepped toward me. You don't get to leave like a thief in the night, he snapped. I stared at him. You slid a rent bill under my door like a thief, I said quietly. This is just me paying attention. Dad's eyes went sharp. Don't talk to me like that. Then don't treat me like a tenant when it benefits you and a daughter when you want control, I said. Logan laughed under his breath. Classic Brianna. Always dramatic. My jaw clenched, but I stayed focused. I'm not here to argue, I said. I'm here to move. Dad's voice dropped low. If you walk out, don't come back. There it was again. The line he thought was a wall. I nodded once. Okay, I said. And that okay hit him harder than any screaming match because it meant the threat didn't work anymore. 2 cars pulled into the driveway. I heard Tessa's voice outside, bright and determined. Bree, we got you. My dad's head snapped toward the window like he couldn't believe I had backup. He hated backup. Backup meant I wasn't isolated. Mom rushed to the door before Dad could. She opened it and forced a smile at Tessa, the kind that screams. Please don't judge me. Tessa walked in, took one look at my face, and her eyes hardened. She didn't say hello to my dad. She didn't say hello to Logan. She just said, Where are the heavy things? My dad cleared his throat. Who are you? He demanded. Tessa turned. Her friend, she said calm. The kind who helps without sending an invoice. The silence after that was loud. Logan's smirk faltered for the first time. Dad's face went red. This is my house, he snapped. Tessa nodded. Great. Then she'll be out of it in an hour. Dad pointed upstairs. She's not taking everything. She's taking her belongings, Tessa said. If you want to stop her, call the police and explain you charged your daughter back rent while paying $60,000 for your son's education. I'd love to hear how that goes. My heart hammered. I didn't expect her to say it out loud, but hearing it said that plainly made me feel something like power. Dad's mouth opened, then closed. He knew how it would sound. He knew the math looked ugly in daylight. Mom started crying again, quiet little sobs like she wanted everyone to feel sorry for her. Brianna, please, she whispered. At least stay for dinner tonight. Let's talk. Talk meant, let Dad lecture you. Let Mom guilt you. Let Logan laugh. I shook my head. No, I said softly. If you wanted to talk, you could have talked before you billed me. We moved fast. Bags. Boxes. My small dresser. My childhood photo albums, the few that actually had me in them. Every time I carried something out, my chest loosened. Like my lungs were finally getting full air. Dad hovered in the hallway, arms crossed, trying to look like he wasn't panicking. He kept muttering comments. You'll see. Rent out there will eat you alive. Don't come begging. You think you're proving something. I didn't answer. I didn't give him my emotions as currency anymore. Halfway through, Logan wandered into my room and picked up one of my framed photos. Remember when you used to be fun? He said. I looked at him. Remember when you used to have consequences? I replied. He blinked, thrown off. Then he scoffed. Whatever, he said, and set the frame down too hard. That small aggression told me he could feel the shift. He couldn't joke his way out of losing his scapegoat. When the last bag was in the car, I stood in the doorway and looked back at the house. It didn't feel like home. Felt like a place I survived. Mom came up behind me, still crying. I love you, she said. I turned and my throat tightened because I did believe she loved me in the only way she knew how. But love without protection is just a word. I love you too, I said. But I can't live under Dad's rules anymore. Dad stood at the end of the hallway, face stiff like he wanted to win even now. You're ungrateful, he said. The word hit, but it didn't stick. 'Cause I could finally see it for what it was. A weapon, not a truth. I nodded once. If refusing to pay for my place in this family makes me ungrateful, then fine, I said. I'd rather be ungrateful than owned. Mom gasped. Logan muttered, she's insane. Dad's eyes went cold. Get out, he said. I smiled, small and sad. I am. I walked out, and when Tessa closed the car door, the sound was so final it almost made me cry. My phone buzzed as we pulled away. Text from Dad. You owe another $300 for this month. I stared at it for a second. Then I did something I'd never done before. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just blocked his number. Tessa glanced over. You okay? She asked. I watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror. I'm not okay, I said honestly. But I'm free. And for the first time, that felt like enough. The bakery smell hit me the second we carried the first box up the narrow stairs. Warm bread, sugar, something buttery. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it made me want to cry because it was proof. The world kept spinning. Life kept smelling like normal things, even when your family treats you like a line item. My new studio was small enough that my voice echoed when I spoke, but when I stepped inside and closed the door, the silence felt clean. No tension humming in the walls. No footsteps that meant a lecture. No notes slipping under a door like a bill collector. Tessa dropped a box and wiped her forehead. Okay, she said, looking around. It's tiny. It's perfect. I laughed once, shaky. It's mine. That word tasted strange in my mouth. Mine. I didn't have much to unpack, but I moved slowly anyway, like my body needed time to believe I was allowed to exist without paying emotional rent. I set my keys on the counter and stared at them for a full minute. No one else had copies. No one could walk in and pretend it was their right. That night I slept on an air mattress with a blanket that smelled like laundry detergent and freedom. I woke up at 3 a.m. in complete darkness, and my first thought was, did I forget to lock my door? The old fear. I checked. Locked. Then I lay back down and realized. Even in my own apartment, my nervous system still expected my dad to find a way to punish me. That's what living under control does. Follows you. The next morning I checked my phone and had 7 voicemails from my mom. Not my dad. He was blocked. But my mom. Her voice cracked in every message. Brianna, please call me. Your father is furious. He says you embarrassed him. He's telling everyone you stole from us. That last one made my blood run cold. Soul. I stared at the screen and felt the familiar urge to fix it, to smooth it, to prove I wasn't the villain in their story. Then I remembered Tessa's sentence. Kind who helps without an invoice. I sat up and forced myself to breathe. If I called, it would turn into the same thing. Mom would cry. Dad would rage. Logan would laugh. And somehow I'd end up apologizing for leaving a place that was hurting me. So I didn't call. Instead, I texted my mom one line. I'm safe. I'm not discussing money. Please stop calling. She replied instantly. Your father says you still owe rent. There it was. Even after I left, they still wanted a payment. I stared at her message and felt something new. Not panic. Clarity. They weren't contacting me because they missed me. They were contacting me because they wanted control back. That afternoon I went to my second job and tried to focus, but my thoughts kept spinning. Not because I doubted my decision, but because I could already feel my dad trying to rewrite the narrative. He'd tell relatives I was unstable. He'd tell coworkers, if he could, that I was ungrateful. He'd tell anyone who'd listen that he was just teaching responsibility. And part of me wanted to scream. You paid $60,000 for Logan. You charged me back rent. But then I realized something. People who believe him without asking me anything were never on my side anyway. 2 days later, my Aunt Claire called. Not text. Called. I let it go to voicemail because I knew how it would go. She left a message that proved me right. Brianna, your parents are devastated. I can't believe you treat them like this. Your father has done so much. You should apologize and come home. Come home. Like home was a place you could be invoiced for. Like home was a bill. I sat on my couch in my tiny studio and felt my throat tighten because the pressure didn't stop when you leave. Follows you through other voices. Through guilt in different mouths. That night Tessa came over with takeout and sat on the floor with me because I didn't have furniture yet. I told her about the voicemails and the stole accusation, and her eyes narrowed. They're trying to scare you back, she said. They want you to panic. They want you to feel like you need to prove you're good. Don't. I stared at my food, appetite gone. What if they tell everyone I stole? I whispered. Tessa leaned forward. Then let them. People who know you won't believe it. People who believe it without asking you aren't safe. Safe. That word hit me. My family wasn't safe. Not physically, not emotionally, not financially. They were a system that demanded payment. The next day my dad tried a new tactic. He emailed me from his work account. Subject line. Final notice. Like I was a delinquent customer. The email listed charges. Back rent. Utilities. Groceries. Moving damage to property. Total. $1,650. He ended it with, "If you don't pay, we will pursue further action." I stared at it, stunned by how far he was willing to go to make a point, to punish me for leaving, to force me to bend. My hand shook. For a minute, the old fear returned. What if he actually sues me? What if he ruins my credit? Then I read the email again and saw the truth. He didn't want money. He wanted submission. Because if he wanted money, he would have discussed it like an adult before I moved in. Not retroactively. Not as a weapon. I took a screenshot. I forwarded it to myself. And then I did what I told him I would do. I treated it like business. I responded once, short, factual. I do not agree to these charges. I did not receive advance notice of a lease agreement. Any further contact about alleged debt should be sent in writing. Do not threaten me. Then I stopped. No arguing. No pleading. No emotional paragraphs. Just a record. That weekend, I got the first crack in Logan's perfect world. He texted me from a new number because he wasn't blocked yet. Dad's mad because your leaving made him look bad. I stared at it because it was the closest thing to honesty I'd ever heard from him. Then he added, "Also, they're asking me to start paying rent now." I blinked. What? I typed back. He replied, "Yeah. Since you left, Dad says adults pay rent, and apparently that includes me. He wants $500 a month." For a second, I felt something like satisfaction. Not because I wanted Logan to suffer. 'Cause I wanted the system exposed. When the scapegoat leaves, the system has to pick a new target. I wrote back one sentence. "Welcome to the lesson." Logan didn't respond. 2 days later, my mom called again, and I finally answered because I needed one thing. Clarity. "Hi," I said, voice steady. Mom sounded exhausted. "Brianna. Thank God. Your father is..." "Mom," I cut in gently. I need you to answer one question. Do you believe I owe him money? Silence. Then a week. He thinks. Mom, do you believe it? I repeated. She exhaled shakily. I don't know. That was the answer. Not yes. Not no. Just, I won't stand up to him. My throat tightened. Okay, I said softly. Then I can't fix this for you. Mom started crying. You're tearing the family apart. The old guilt tried to rise. I swallowed it down. No, I said. I'm just refusing to be the glue anymore. Then I hung up and my hands trembled, but my mind felt clear. 'Cause I finally understood. Leaving wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of the part where my family learns what happens when you try to collect rent from a daughter and call it love. The silence after I hung up on my mom was louder than any argument we'd ever had. In my old house, silence meant punishment. It meant my dad had decided I didn't deserve words until I behaved. In my studio above the bakery, silence meant something different. It meant nobody was controlling the air. Nobody was waiting to correct me. It meant I could hear my own thoughts without translating them into something my family would approve of. For the first few days after that call, I kept expecting my mom to show up at my door. I kept expecting my dad to show up at my jobs. I kept expecting some dramatic move because controlling people don't let go quietly. But instead, my family chose a different tactic. They recruited the crowd. The first message came from my cousin Marissa. Hey, Bree. I heard things are tense. Dad says you moved out without paying what you owe. Is that true? I stared at her text for a full minute. Not because I didn't know what to say. 'Cause I finally understood the game. If I answered emotionally, I'd look unstable. If I answered with details, they'd say I was oversharing. If I stayed silent, they'd call it guilt. The system was designed so I always looked wrong. So I chose the one thing that doesn't care about their opinions. Facts. I replied. I was charged $900 in back rent with no prior agreement. I paid it. I moved out. I do not owe additional charges. That's it. Marissa didn't respond. Not even, oh wow, 'cause people don't ask questions when they don't actually want answers. The next message came from Aunt Claire, the same aunt whose kids I'd babysat for free. Your father says you're refusing to help the family. It's heartbreaking. You need to come home and make peace. I stared at that line. Help the family. Like my job was to absorb unfairness so everyone else could keep pretending it was normal. I didn't reply. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Dad's new email. Subject. You're going to ruin this family. I opened it, and it was a full paragraph of guilt dressed up as morality. We raised you. We fed you. We sacrificed. We supported you. And this is how you repay us. Your mother is sick with worry. Your brother is stressed. You're acting selfish. He never mentioned the $60,000. He never mentioned the back rent note. He never mentioned the moving goalposts. He mentioned everything except the cause because he wanted the effect to look like my fault. I didn't respond. I saved the email. I took screenshots. I built my file. 'Cause when you grow up with someone who rewrites history, documentation becomes your sanity. One night, a week later, Logan showed up at my door. No text. No warning. Just a knock that sounded like entitlement. My stomach flipped, but I kept my voice steady as I spoke through the door. What do you want? Logan sighed dramatically. Open up. I'm not here to fight. I didn't open. Say it. He hesitated. Dad is losing it, he said. He's taking it out on everyone. I almost laughed. Course he was. Without me to bill and blame, he needed a new outlet. Okay, I said. And Logan's voice got lower, quieter. He's making me pay rent now. I closed my eyes for a second, feeling that strange mix of vindication and sadness. How much? I asked. 500. Plus utilities. Logan muttered. He says it's only fair. Only fair. The phrase tasted bitter. So you finally learned what it feels like to be taught responsibility retroactively, I said. Logan exhaled hard. Yeah. Funny. He snapped. Look, Brie. Can you just talk to them? He listens to you more than anyone. There it was. The real reason. They didn't want me back because they loved me. They wanted me back because I managed him. I was the buffer. The emotional shock absorber. The peacekeeper. I leaned my forehead against the door, not in defeat but in clarity. Logan. I'm not their translator anymore. I said. I'm not their therapist. I'm not Dad's anger sponge. Logan's voice sharpened. So you're just going to let Mom cry? That line hit because it was designed to. Mom crying was always the family's emergency. My pain was always a footnote. I swallowed. I'm not letting Mom cry. Dad is making Mom cry. I said. And you're blaming me because it's easier than blaming him. Logan went quiet. Then he tried another angle, softer. Okay. Fine. But Dad said if you pay what you, he'll drop it. I stared at the door like it could hold back rage. Pay what I owe. I repeated. I already paid the $900. I have the transfer. I have the memo. I have screenshots. Logan scoffed. He says that doesn't count because you made it disrespectful with the memo. I actually laughed then, short and sharp. So, it's not about money. It's about obedience. I said. Logan didn't answer because he couldn't deny it. I took a slow breath. Listen carefully. I said. I'm not paying a second time. I'm not apologizing for leaving. And I'm not coming back to be the glue. If Dad wants to charge you rent, that's between you and him. Welcome to adulthood. Logan's voice cracked with frustration. You're being cold. Cold. Another word. Like boundaries are ice, not survival. No, I said. I'm being consistent. There was silence on the other side of the door. Then Logan's voice got smaller. He's going to hate you forever. I closed my eyes. He already treated me like a bill. I can't be more hated than that. I said. Logan exhaled, defeated. Fine. He muttered. Whatever. I listened to his footsteps fade down the stairs. When the building went quiet again, I sat on the floor with my back against the door and felt my hands shake. Not because I regretted it. 'Cause holding a boundary feels like lifting something heavy in a body that was trained to collapse. The next morning, my mom sent a single text. Your father says he'll forgive you if you just come for Sunday dinner. Forgive me. Like I committed a crime by leaving an unfair contract. I stared at her message and realized something. They were still talking like I was their child. Like they could punish and forgive me into compliance. But I wasn't a child. I was a tenant who moved out. I was an adult who refused to pay emotional rent. So I typed the only response that mattered. No. Then I blocked her too. And the second her name disappeared from my screen, my chest loosened. Not because I stopped loving her. 'Cause I stopped bleeding for her. Blocking my mom felt like cutting off a limb at first. Not because she was kind. 'Cause she was familiar. And in families like mine, familiar gets mistaken for safe. The first week after I blocked her, I kept reaching for my phone like a reflex. Like my body expected the next crisis, the next guilt trip, the next demand dressed up as concern. But the crisis didn't arrive. The world didn't collapse. My rent didn't magically double. My life didn't punish me for choosing myself. And that was the strangest part. Realizing how many of my fears were just my father's voice living in my head. 2 weeks later, I ran into Aunt Claire at the grocery store. I was standing in the cereal aisle, comparing prices like an adult who actually has to think about money when I heard her say my name like a warning. Brianna. I turned, and she was already frowning, arms crossed like she'd come to correct me. Your mother is devastated, she said. No hello. No. How are you? Straight to the guilt. I breathed slowly. I'm sure she's upset, I said. But I'm okay. Aunt Claire's mouth tightened. Okay. Really? You blocked your own mother. That's not okay. I held her gaze. It's okay when a father charges his daughter back rent, I said. It's okay when he pays $60,000 for his son and then hands his daughter a bill. That's okay. But me blocking a phone number is the crime. Aunt Claire looked startled, like she wasn't used to facts being said out loud in public. It's not like that, she snapped. Families help each other. I nodded once. Exactly. Families help each other. They don't invoice each other. And Claire huffed. Your father was trying to teach you responsibility. The script. Always the same script. I tilted my head. Then why didn't he teach Logan responsibility? I asked. Why did he teach Logan with checks and teach me with debt? Aunt Claire opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't have a pretty answer. So she did what they always did. She attacked my character. You've always been sensitive, she said. You always take things personally. I almost smiled because that line used to work. It used to make me doubt myself. Now it just sounded like a weak excuse. If fairness is personal, then yes, I take it personally, I said. Aunt Claire's eyes narrowed. So what? You're just done with all of us. I looked down at the cereal boxes, then back at her. I'm done with being used, I said. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be one where I'm not punished for needing help, where I'm not billed for being here. And Claire scoffed. Good luck with that. Then she walked away like she was the victim. I stood there, heart pounding, but my spine felt straighter. 'Cause I said it. I didn't apologize for it. I didn't soften it to keep her comfortable. And the world didn't end. The next month I got promoted at my second job. Not a huge promotion. A supervisor role. A small raise. But when my manager handed me the paperwork, I felt tears sting my eyes. Not because of the money, though the money mattered. Because it was proof that my life could grow without my parents' approval. Called Tessa first. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You did it, she yelled. You're building your own life. That night we celebrated with cheap takeout and a cupcake from the bakery downstairs, and I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. It was the kind of laugh I didn't realize I'd been missing. The laugh you get when you're not waiting for the next demand. A week after my promotion, Logan texted from another new number. Dad is blaming you for everything. Mom is depressed. He says you ruined the family. I stared at the message and felt that old tug, the instinct to fix it. Then I remembered. Hey, we're ruined because the scapegoat left. That's not my fault. That's just the system showing itself. I typed one line. I didn't ruin it. I just stopped paying for it. Then I blocked that number too. Spring came. The city warmed. The bakery windows were open in the mornings and my apartment smelled like cinnamon. One day I was walking home with groceries and I realized I hadn't thought about my dad's rent note in a while. Not because it didn't matter. Because it no longer controlled me. That's the thing about distance. It doesn't erase what happened, but it takes away its power to keep happening. Then, almost 6 months after I moved out, I got an email from my dad's work account again. Subject line: family meeting. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it and felt my pulse slow instead of spike. That was new. When I finally opened it, the message was short. Your mother is asking you to come to dinner. No drama. We need to talk. No drama. Translation: don't mention the money. Don't mention the rent note. Don't mention Logan's $60,000. Come back and pretend it was a misunderstanding so we can go back to normal. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my photos and found the screenshot of the transfer. Rent payment. March to May. Memo included. I looked at it for a second, then closed it. I didn't need it to convince them. I needed it to remind myself. I'm not crazy. I'm not dramatic. I'm not ungrateful. I'm a person who refused to be treated like a bill. The last piece of the story came from my mom, surprisingly. A handwritten letter arrived in my mailbox one afternoon. No return address. Just my name. Brianna. My hand shook as I opened it because paper feels heavier than texts. Her handwriting was messy, rushed. I miss you, she wrote. Your father is stubborn. I don't know how to fix this. I never wanted you to feel less loved. I'm sorry for the rent thing. I didn't know he would do it. I stared at that line. I didn't know he would do it. I could have been angry. Instead, I felt something calmer. She knew who he was. She just didn't think he'd turn it on her favorite peacekeeper. She ended with, please come back. Even just for a visit. I folded the letter and sat on my couch in my small studio, listening to the bakery downstairs. I thought about what come back meant. Didn't mean a relationship built on respect. It meant returning to my role. Returning to the family's balance, where my discomfort was the price of everyone else's comfort. I picked up a pen and wrote one sentence on the bottom of her letter. I love you, but I will not come back to a home where love has a price tag. Then I mailed it back. No extra paragraphs. No explanations. Just the boundary. 'Cause that was my revenge. Not screaming. Not public humiliation. Not destruction. Just refusing to be owned. My dad spent $60,000 on my brother's future, then charged me $900 to sleep in my childhood room. He called it responsibility. I call it a receipt for the moment I stopped confusing control with love. And if my parents ever ask why the phone got silent, why the visits stopped, why I don't need them anymore, the answer is simple. Because I finally learned the lesson they didn't mean to teach. The most expensive rent is the one you pay with your peace. And I moved out of that contract for good.